Bring some energy to your life this morning. It is 7 o'clock and we're ready to kick things off for you. You just saw the blue chair. Well, we're talking all about blue today, St. Louis Blues. We're going to talk with former enforcer Reed Lowe. He's been a dear friend of mine since my days of covering sports. I don't know if you know that about me. I've done a lot in this last 30 years of my career, and some of my proudest moments were the 12 years that I covered the St. Louis Blues, the St. Louis Cardinals, the St. Louis Rams at the time. And I still think about what's my favorite thing that I did in my career. Sports, definitely one of them. I was an athlete growing up, and I had a chance to get to know a lot of the St. Louis Blues players really well. I became friends with a lot of them. Reed Lowe, one of them. Kelly Chase, Brett Hall. I mean, the numbers go on and on and on. Those were the heydays of the St. Louis Blues. And, I think they were just a household name. And speaking of households and homes, that is one of the things that I love about many of our professional athletes. They fall in love with this city and they make it their home. They decide to live here. I mean, he's from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and we're talking about a Canadian boy, and he doesn't go back to Canada. He calls St. Louis his home. His family is here. Now, we're going to talk about, of course, his playing days. We're going to talk also about some of the other businesses that he's gotten involved in. But one of the things you don't know about Reed Lowe, and after today's show, you're going to just want to give him a big hug. He's a big guy, big enforcer. You just want to give him a big bear hug when you hear his story about faith and family and how that is truly the journey that he's on. So, I've talked a lot about my faith, and I've always said, never will I ever push something on someone, because I think it's really powerful when you find it on your own. And that's one of the things that happened with him. He was introduced to it when he was younger, and as many people say, if it was pushed upon them, they rebelled and they were driven away from it. That happened to him. He'll talk about that, and he'll talk about how he came back to it, and that was when it was the most powerful, when you find it on your own. I always wrap up every show with a devotional from the 100 Days to Freedom. I'm going to let Reed choose the one that really resonates with him today. There he is, right? Reed Lowe, that flowing hair, all those locks. That was back in his days playing for the Blues. If you don't know, he played for the St. Louis Blues, and he also played for the Chicago Blackhawks. We don't want to remember that year. That was a brief stint after he had left the St. Louis Blues. So that's coming up on today's show. I also have my iPad ready to go so I can interact with you. If you have any fond memories from when Reed was playing, and if you ever had a chance to meet him, he's just such a likable guy. He's got so much going on in his life. I want to say good morning to all of you that are up, and Adam, Marilyn, Sean, Dan, Darminder, Kathy, good morning to all of you. And I also want to, with Kathy on, I just want to say something today. Today, August 1st, we're kicking off a brand new month and a brand new sponsor that I'm so excited to have sponsor today's segment. Kathy Kilo Peterson. She is a State Farm agent. KKilo.com. That's when you can find her at 636-561-6460. I had a really long sit-down talk with Kathy, and I said, Kathy, what makes you an agent that someone would want to hire? And she said, because Monica, I'm the type of person that is on call 24 hours a day, and if you have like those horrible storms that came through the other day, I'm seeing all these trees that were knocked down on people's homes, on their cars. It's devastating to you, and some people are having to actually get out of their homes. Then they're trying to figure out, where am I going to live? She's there at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes, she said, with really horrible storms and things that pull through, even before sometimes the Red Cross shows up. That's actually something in her that she wants. She knows people's first names. She knows their family. She knows their friends. She knows everything about you that you give to her, and I've been told that you give a lot because you trust her. Kathy Kilo Peterson. Kathy, thank you, by the way, for believing in us, believing in the mission that we're going to do together. So when it comes to needing an insurance agent, and I know you're all very big on supporting those that are supporting us, so I ask you to think about that. Kathy Kilo Peterson, KKilo.com. She is one of our brand new sponsors, and welcome to the family, Kathy. I am thrilled to have you as part of us, and thank you for your integrity, and thank you for trusting in us. And of course, we also have our wonderful sponsors that we've had from day one. We've been doing this since March 1st. Can you believe that? April, May, June, July. That's 5 months we've been together already. And some of you have been with us from day one, and you have not given up. We have not given up on you. We have made a devotion to be here for you 5 days a week, 7 a.m. That's a lot. You know, somebody said, you already had your 100th show. That takes a long time for a lot of people. And I said, yeah, we hit that already in mid-July because we have been coming to you and you've been showing up. You've been listening, you've been liking, you've been following, you've been sharing. And I have to thank Michelle, one of our, well, she's of course one of my best friends, but she's on our team. She just came back from Cabo San Lucas and she took a bunch of those flyers we've been talking about and she handed them out in Cabo. So we're going to be looking at, are we going to gain people from other countries, from other states? That's what I want. It's not just here. We don't want to be selfish and just keep the love here in St. Louis. We want to spread it all over. So make sure family, friends know that we're here on Facebook. And in fact, we're on both my business and my personal page. So we're talking about over 20,000 people just from that alone. And then we have the addition of YouTube. So YouTube, if you have people who say, nope, I'm not on social media, I don't want to get onto Facebook, well, there you go. There's our outlet. And then on Thursdays, we drop on all the audio podcast platforms, wherever you can get your podcasts, whether it's Spotify or iHeartRadio or iTunes, we drop a brand new show. And if you missed last Monday's show with Jeff Kozatek, the Blueprint for Value, he is an engaging speaker, motivational speaker, juggler, entertainer. If you missed that or if you know anybody that did, have them listen to that because that's the show that will drop on all the audio podcast platforms this Thursday. All right, well, we're here for you and you're here for us. And coming up in the blue chair, former St. Louis Blues enforcer Reed Lowe joins me next. Envita Health and Wellness, where you can feel your best both inside and out. Envita isn't your typical med spa. They're a multi-specialty medical spa and wellness center serving St. Louis and its surrounding areas. They have ketamine for mental health and pain, IV therapy, medical weight loss, and aesthetics treatments. As board-certified anesthesia providers, Envita can ensure that their advanced treatments are provided safely with minimal to no pain. So let Envita take care of you. Call 314-394-0950 to book an appointment or online envitahealthandwellness.com. And welcome back and good morning to you. Hope you're having a great start to the day. You know, I was driving in this morning and I looked at the clouds in the sky and it's so easy. And this is how you look at life, that people go, oh, it's kind of overcast. Where's that beautiful sunshine Monica always talks about? I saw it. I saw the sliver. I saw the pinks and the oranges. It's always there, that light, even in the dimming of the darkness when you feel like there's no light out there. It's there. Sometimes you have to dig deep down into your soul, though, and look for it a little more. However, that's where the greatest reward is, the greatest success coming from the darkest of places. That is kind of the theme of what we're going to discuss today. I mentioned that my friend and your former St. Louis Blues enforcer, Reed Lowe, would be my guest, and he is here in the blue chair. Hello, my friend.
How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic.
I'm thrilled to have you with us.
Beautiful studio here.
Thank you. Thank you.
In Clayton. So we've been talking about me coming on for a while, and I'm glad we made it happen.
I am as well. So Reed and I go way back to when he was in his playing days. What were your years when you played with the Blues?
2000 to 2005. So 04-05 lockout wasn't really a season, but we were still rostered.
And then you went to, we won't talk about Chicago.
Hey, beggars can't be choosy. I wanted to play for the Blues. They just weren't interested in me anymore.
Yes.
I needed a job.
You hear the Canadian accent, so you want to talk about where you grew up?
Yeah, grew up in a small town. I guess not really that small. It's the third largest city in Saskatchewan, Moose Jaw, and played all my hockey there. Grew up there. I even played 2 years of major junior in the Western Hockey League in my hometown. And so, yeah, it was a great time, super cold. That's why I didn't go home. Everyone's like, why didn't you go home? I'm like, minus 50 degrees.
Oh, no, thank you.
I found something else that's not quite as bad. Everyone's like, it's so cold here. I'm like, you have no idea.
Yeah, no kidding. And now you got this crazy heat wave that we have here. I mean, what a world of difference from where you grew up to what we're experiencing now.
It probably took 10 years for me to truly get used to the humidity.
Sure.
And still today, like, you walk outside, it's like getting body checked in the corner.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. So you have lived in St. Louis how many years now? Since 2000?
Yeah, since 2000. Spent summers back during my hockey days, and then I spent 2 years where I was out down in Peoria, Chicago, Norfolk, Virginia. So about 21 years actually in St. Louis, but 26 in the States.
So, Reed, I brought this up, and I see this. You know, I was friends with a lot of the Blues players from back in your days, and I've seen so many of you that have decided to call St. Louis home. And I've never had a chance to ask any of you why.
You know, first and foremost, it's just the city, it's the people. This is a very tight knit group of people, and obviously, if you ask somebody where they went to high school, that's a big deal. It kind of gives you your geographical
You're like
judge,
Moose Jaw.
your geographical judge on who they are before you get to know them. You know, but St. Louis is not an easy city to infiltrate as somebody that's trying to come in just regular, and so it's the greatest sports town in the world. Mm-hmm. And you know, you see what the Battlehawks are doing, you see what the St. Louis Blues are doing, you see what sports means to this town. There's really nothing St. Louis couldn't bring to this town that they wouldn't get on board and support. That's just the type of people that are here. And, you know, back when Bobby Plager and Bruce Affleck and all those guys were retiring in the late 60s, early 70s, early 80s, there was all kinds of opportunity for those guys to be able to get jobs and stay in the community and be a part of the community that had kind of given them what they, you know, had deserved through their hockey career. So I think they just kind of paved the way, and it's just a really easy place. I knew as soon as I drove into this town and was a part of this town and played for this team that this is where I was going to settle down.
It is, and I love the fact that you said that this is the greatest sports town. And I know other people say, no, ours is, but really I've talked to so many athletes in the 12 years that I covered sports, and they all said the same thing. Every athlete said it, not just the fans, but they all said, I got to say, it is really true. You have the most incredible sports fans of any city I've ever seen.
And the best part, listen to a guy like Al McInnes talk when he was coming down for free agency, and he was looking in free agency. I think it was back at like 92, 93 out of Calgary. And everybody he was asking is like, go to St. Louis, go to St. Louis. And, you know, when you have a guy that was told by everybody to go to St. Louis, then he goes to St. Louis. Yeah. And then he raises his family here, and now he's obviously a big part of the St. Louis Blues and their decision-making process. But just perfect example of even the superstar Wayne Gretzky lives in St. Louis.
Well, he played here with us for what, a year?
Yeah, not even 39 games, I think.
39 exact.
Yeah, sorry.
But enough to have a Blues jersey with Gretzky's name on the back, which is super cool. Yeah. Yes, I was lucky enough to be covering during the time that he played here, and the great one. I mean, he really is. And what a class act.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. And we'll get into that a little bit later, what professional sports, what our industry could do to the ego. And you talk in this testimonial about how it entered in you.
Oh, yeah.
There were those times. We'll get to that in just a second. People are saying hi to you, Reed. Harriet says, hello, Reed, and glad to have you on. Hello, Reed, come out of retirement. We need an enforcer.
No, thank you. There's not enough money in the bank.
Good morning, Monica Adams and Reed Lowe from Equus Rescue. Well, they're incredible. I'm getting ready to MC their event. Well, let's talk about that. Outside of you playing, so you had these incredible heydays of NHL, and then you get out, and one of the things that I'm talking about doing right now is to sit down with pro athletes, to sit down with CEOs, to talk with presidents of companies of what happens to you when suddenly all that limelight, all of the ego mind that's driven in, and it's all you know, what happens when it's all taken away? And I've talked to a handful of people, guys in general, that say, ooh, that's powerful, because oh, I just got chill. Because what happens to us is hard to deal with when we feel so alone. You've talked about the times of having the ego. It's kind of fed in. You're younger when you're playing, and it's hard not to because you have this rise. You have a lot of money coming in. I think you even talked one time in your testimony where you said that you went from having a $150,000 car at one point to nothing in the bank. And that's very difficult on the mental and the spirit, isn't it?
It is, but it's as I've kind of released from holding on to all this human stuff everybody wants to when it comes to money and those different things. It's one of those things that doesn't affect me as much anymore. But when you grow up like me, where I was picked on a little bit, for those people back in Moose Jaw, yeah, I brought a lot of it on myself, but that's just for this. So there could be some people that's going, oh, you used to bring it on yourself, buddy. But at the same time, it was always there. And then all of a sudden, I make junior hockey, and they're like, you're never going to stay, you're never going to make it. And then I make the Moose Jaw Warriors, oh, he's never going to stay, never going to make it. Then I get drafted in the NHL, oh, he'll never make the NHL, and he'll never. And then all of a sudden, this is what's driving you. Mm-hmm. And you're not really watching what's pushing you behind it, but it's everybody saying that it's not. And there was just a strong belief that I was going to do it from the time I was a really little kid, like just whatever it takes, which is why I ended up being a fighter, because I wasn't skilled enough to just not have that physical aspect to the game. And then you make the NHL, and all of a sudden, you're it, right? And for me, how much do people in the NHL, fans, and especially St. Louisans, like the tough guy, right? So right off the bat, I'm a rookie, helmets are off, fists are flailing, and I've got even more people that like me, and not that they don't like you because of who you are, but they truly don't know who you are, right? They just see this guy on the ice, and they get fall in love with that aspect. And so as you kind of walk through life and you get retired, I was fortunate enough to get off the company called Ritchie Brothers Auctioneers, so that lonely aspect or that transitional aspect wasn't as hard on me, even though I got offered here's an itinerary, show up on time and beat the crap out of people, to I have to make appointments and do contracts and all this other stuff. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing, you know? So my buddy Nick Pacino used to tell me all the time, Reed's organizational skills are a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10, but that's not bad because he started at a -5.
Exactly. Look at that growth.
Just keep growing. And so as I get kind of where I'm at today, it's just good to sit back and be able to allow things to come to me with my spiritualness and my faith and where it's come. I make less and less decisions and let more evolve in front of me, and it's just a safer place for my mind to be.
Yep. If you're just tuning in and you don't know who this big teddy bear is, this is Reed Lowe. You know him from the St. Louis Blues, maybe from the Chicago Blackhawks. Maybe you've seen him around doing motivational speaking. He just mentioned auctioneering. You're actually a 3rd-generation auctioneer.
Yeah,
which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, my dad, my grandfather, and my uncle are all auctioneers, so grew up with that in the family. And then ended up, after I got retired from the NHL, I started working with the world's largest industrial and construction auction company, Ritchie Brothers. Not as an auctioneer, just as a territory manager, salesman, bringing equipment to the auction and building relationships. But that's where I learned kind of my cadence and where the numbers were. And other than that, that's just a beautiful gift from God that He gave me. Like, that's all. Amen. That is. I have no training. I have no nothing. It's in the blood. But that it's just, when I'm up on stage, it's almost out of body.
It is. And, you know, you and I have both talked about how incredible it would be for you and I to do this together, to speak together, take the stage together. There's a lot of things that Reed and I want to do, but I've been in your presence when you've done it. I don't know if have you ever been to one that I've done? I don't think you have. I've got to invite him.
Yes.
Yes. So I've been around and I've watched you raise big money. You have a huge heart for so many organizations. And, you know, you and I have talked about this, is that value. You see the book that sits right next to me, Knowing Your Value. You and I had lunch just a few weeks ago, and we both are the same way. Huge heart, but it's what happens is then everybody wants a piece of you, and everybody wants you to do everything for free. And then you say, well, I want to give and give and give, but where's there a point where I have to be paid for something?
Sure.
So you get the calls, can you do this? And I love the fact that you applauded yourself and you said, oh my gosh, Reed, you know how to say no. Because you had somebody ask for something coming up in, I think it was the fall or the winter, and you're like, I can't. I have people who know my value. I have people know that what I bring to the table and what I'm able to give to this nonprofit organization or any organization to raise their money. But they also know, and this is the thing that you and I both had to learn, we're being taken away from our families. Maybe we're traveling, and our time matters. Yep. And I applaud you for that. I'm still learning it.
Well, I think the one thing that, as I started to want to do this more and more, is I either have to have a real job and go get paid to do that, or else I can find a way to, in a fair manner, help the charity raise more money than they would have raised if I wasn't there. And there's been times where I didn't feel like I added the value, and so I didn't take anything. And there's been other times where I felt that I brought more value and there was nothing that came back. And that's not where it's at for me. Again, where I sit is just like, I go do it and He will give me whatever He needs me to have. And so, but at the same time, I want to be able to go out and help as many people. I know that when I'm on the auction stage that I do that. I know that I have a knack for pulling money out of people's pockets. People have told me that I do this to them.
You're like, how did I buy a $3,000?
Don't lock eyes with Reed at an auction. He won't let you go. He'll just grab you until you have nothing left.
I was actually watching one of your auction videos, and you were auctioning off a Tarasenko jersey. And it's interesting because I've been there where all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, it feels like the crowd's done. It's about $750. $8. And then it's like, okay, going, oh, you want to do 8? Okay. And then it gave me $850. Okay, give me 9. Now I got 9 and give me $950. And then it went up to like $1,200.
Yeah.
But you feel like the room, they start to drink, then you lose. I have lost my voice so many times when you're like, hello, can you all listen? It's just this short little window and this is what we're here for. They don't care. You're like, I'm so hoarse the next day.
Especially those Catholic fun school
oh my
fundraisers.
gosh, so true. So true.
Absolutely crazy.
You're like, can you not start drinking just yet? Can we make the auction earlier in the night?
What can we do here? No, it's one of those things that I get with when it gets a little out of hand. I'll be like, hey folks, or I'll just stand there and bring some, and then people start taking their glass and get on support with it, and just get them to understand, hey, listen, if you just give me a little bit of your time, you might not be interested, but that person next to you might be interested, and they can't hear. And now we're not doing what we're supposed to do, which is maximize dollars at the event.
Very true. And so one of the things that I've been mentioning is that you might know Reed from his playing days. You might know him from actually doing an auction for you, for your organization. He's incredible at it. He's got a huge heart for it. Those are the things you might know about him. What you may not know is how deeply rooted he is to his family. His children are everything to him. I've had an opportunity not meet all of your kids. I don't think I've met Ava. Have I?
I think maybe, but...
Brief.
I know you met Ollie.
I met Ollie. Ollie was in handcuffs. That's a whole nother story. I should have brought that picture in. My husband's a St. Louis Blue. My husband's a St. Louis County lieutenant with the police, and he actually went by Reed's house one day, and we were dropping something off, and then Ollie's like, "Can I see the police vehicle?" And so we went out there, and then Jim put him in handcuffs, and he liked it. And Reed's like, "I didn't want you to like it. This is not a good thing for you to like." We're looking at your kids right now, so we're talking about Connor and Cooper and Ollie and Ava, and again, everything to you. We'll talk about Laura as well. That's your best friend.
Yeah.
And she's been by your side for so much. Love these pictures. I'm going to take a break. We're going to talk more about his family, and then the family that many of you have found, which is our dear Lord above, our true Father, and how Jesus came in to Reed's life. That's coming up after the break.
Warm weather, sand beaches, and boats galore. It's not Florida, it's a Lake of the Ozarks. Florida Direct Palm Trees brings tropical flair to your patios, docks, and yards. From a few feet all the way to 25 feet, there are palm trees for every property. Florida Direct also provides palm tree potting soil, palm fertilizer, large decorative pots, and a wide selection of locally grown tropical flowers and plants to add the perfect accent to your tropical paradise. Florida Direct Palm Trees, bringing paradise to your patio for 14 plus years.
Welcome back, 722. It is the Real Monica Adams Show, and you just saw our friends at Florida Direct Palm Tree. By the way, if you know of a company that aligns with our mission, which is to change your life mentally, physically, spiritually, maybe help you find faith, because that's what I lean in on. And I tell you what, it's in a beautiful place to be when it awakens you. I've got so many chills right now, Reed. It is crazy. My friend and your St. Louis Blue, who will always be in your hearts as blue. I had to wear blue for you today. You knew that.
I didn't.
I thought,
Grays and blacks. What else going on?
That's because you're in the blue chair, though. See, that's your accent. That's your accent.
I didn't want to get.
You don't want to camouflage in there. This is Reed Lowe, and I just want to, I told you if you want to make some comments or maybe you share something. If you had an opportunity to meet Reed in the past, I would love for you to do that. Some people are just saying good morning. Let's go to Monica. Is he free to join you for the Boots and Jeans Ball at Equus Rescue and Therapy? I'll have to find out. I'll see if his calendar's open. I'd love that. Totally agree on your worth and value. Love this. Two amazing people. Thank you, Reed, for all you do. You're awesome. This is lovely. Hi, Reed. It's Angie Workmeister. You know Angie?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
oh my gosh, she's been one of my clients that I've trained for years.
I coached her kids forever.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very, very cool. So she says, the boys say hi. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for all you do to give back. What a great example you're setting. The best life lessons come from when you coach them. I love that. Okay, we have to do this. Ready? Marilyn says, let's go Blues. We love that chant. So again, you know him from those days. We showed you some of his playing day pictures. We also, right before the break, showed you his family. Now, one of the things we're going to transition into is how much your family means to you. And one of the hardest times was you were married, but you went through a really rough divorce. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So nobody ever, I think, sets out to get married, to get divorced. I don't think that's ever in the plans. And, you know, one of the toughest things about divorce is the death that almost lives every day when you wake up in the morning and you look at your kids and you're like, man, how did this not work? For me, when I take a look back in 05, 06, I went through a really bad time. Got sent to the minors out of training camp. Then I was a healthy scratch in the American Hockey League after I was just a regular in the NHL. So there's a little bit of that ego being broken, right?
Yep.
You know what ego stands for?
Yes.
Edging God out.
Yes.
And so I'm broken there, and then all of a sudden I get in a fight. And so it's like 3 strikes in a row, break my jaw completely in half, out for 5 months. So I missed like a year and a half of hockey. And when I came back to Peoria, a guy named Rocky Thompson was there, and Rocky had gone through, excuse me, a really tough time in his life with just drugs and alcohol and the crazy life that professional sports can give you. But he had changed his ways, and he was very, very into almost a ministry level, like he was preaching. And so we used to do this Bible study, and I went in there, and I really, really enjoyed it. And after the times that I had been pushed away from religion, it was my first real experience at what the relationship was like and how to feel that Holy Spirit. And then whenever I left at the end of that season, I just never found anything. And so sometimes it's hard for me to look back and think, man, if I would have found Jesus at that moment in my life, where would I be today? But we can't go back and forth and do that kind of stuff. But we're still human, so we do it anyways. And so it's okay to think, for me, it's okay to think back at what I could have, should have done, because that has to help catapult me to better decisions in the future for what I do. But my kids are everything to me, and quite frankly, they lived through a pretty tough time in both mine and my ex-wife's timelines in our life, because it's never, we could sit here and nitpick on whose fault, who did more, who did less. We did that for 8 years. And then about a year and a half ago, my oldest son Connor and her and Dina, my ex-wife, got together, and we're like, hey, listen, there's only 4 people in this world that are really get hurt through urinized dysfunction. And it's time for us to grow up and be better parents. And so we've worked at that, and we're doing that every day. We still fail a little bit, but the fall isn't as far, and she's brought God into her life. And Zach Williams sings a song called Come to the Table, and at the end of the song he says, if God's in your life, he can take any mess and turn it into a message. And so I talk about that with my ex-wife a lot, saying, hey, listen, like our relationship from a man to woman is gone, but our friendship has to remain and grow consistently through the years in order to take care of our kids. And we owe them a lot, because we probably didn't, but Connor will tell you too that, that's some of the reasons why he is who he is today, because of those things that he had to battle through and those adversities that he had to go through as well. And I think all the kids do, and I'm very vulnerable with my kids, so I tell them what's wrong with me, and I tell them the things that I have that I don't like about myself or that I'm trying to change, and they see those things too. They see how my walk with Jesus and my spirituality and where I'm at today, they've seen it change me. So that's the best feeling for me is, first off, I know what's in my heart today. I know who I am today, comparatively speaking, to 3 years ago. But I also know that my kids see it as well, and they're the 4 most important, decision, like judgment people that I'm looking for.
Well, that transparency, that authenticity, that rawness, real, that is what we need more of in life. I'm so glad not only that you are doing this, 1, as a professional athlete, 2, as a man, which we need more men to be open and to speak like this. It's not the easiest thing. Men are taught, and you talk about this in the testimonial that we're going to show in just a second. We're going to play a little clip from it that I think is really powerful. But in that testimonial, which is about 23 minutes long, Reed talks about very, very young, how he was in the beginning of playing days, and it was, I think, was it a Christian
Christian
league
athlete hockey camp.
that you were told to say this prayer, you would go to hell?
Yeah, so these counselors grabbed me about the second day into this camp, and we were staying out in Cairnport. And the only reason I wanted to go there is because Doug Smale, who was an NHLer, grew up in Moose Jaw, and he was going to be there, so I wanted to go to his hockey camp, right? And so at the time, we kind of had, my dad was a minister, and there was still a little bit of church in the family up till I was about 6. Don't remember a whole lot after that. I was probably 13 when this happened, and these 4 counselors pulled me in a room and were like, listen, you're the only one that hasn't said this prayer. If you don't say this prayer, you're going to go to hell. And I'm just like, TV time out, people. I'm out of here. You know what I mean? Like, I called my dad. I'm like, get me out of here. And that's not how it is. And unfortunately, or in what I believe in today, fortunately, because sometimes we have to walk through what we have to walk through in order to truly feel that. And so, it's not something that is pushed upon. And I don't ever talk to people about what Jesus can do in their life.
Yes.
I tell people what Jesus has done in my life, because someone's more willing to listen to what your story is when you're vulnerable and you talk about what happens with you and what is going on with you and why these changes are made and how your mindset's different than it was before. And so for me, that's the one part that is separational for me when it comes to religion versus relationship. And for me, religion has done more harm in our world today than it's done anything, and I really feel like it's the relationship that you have to have. When I read the Bible's a treasure map for me to look in what the Word is and how that's going to affect me and change me for the better when I do my Bible studies on Thursday morning. So,
and you started that, by the way, and you have not missed a Thursday morning at 7 a.m. since when?
2.5 years, February of 2021.
And let me tell you all, I had an opportunity to spend summer last year in Cabo San Lucas with him, with Laura, with your kids, with my best friend and her husband and his son. We had a beautiful time there together. By the way, that is where this all came from.
Yeah.
God, my Father, all saying, it's time. There's a chill. It's time. And when you said earlier, we can all go back and go, oh my gosh, but if I had known this, if I had done this, if I had found him, instead of doing that, we dip back there, we learn from that, and then we pull forward, and we're on this beautiful path, and we just keep letting it guide us. He guides me, my dad guides me to this exact space. I watched him. I took what was my favorite picture, and I mean, come on, Cabo San Lucas is beautiful scenery. We had a lot of fun, but the picture I took of you out by the putting area, he was sitting there listening to his music. I know you are very big into listening to Joy FM. My friend Nick, who used to work in promotions with me at WIL, who I never thought would go on here, is their morning guy, which I was just like, what? Nick Spinolas, you're on. That's crazy. So Nick and all the staff over at Joy, you do beautiful things. And I know that you read and your kids listen to their music. You were listening to your music back then. I just saw greatness in this picture that I took and peace. I saw peace in you where I knew that there was darkness. You talk in your testimonial about addictions, about going to alcohol, about drinking at 10 o'clock in the morning because you were so alone and so lost, hugging the pillow, and that's the part I want to play. So George, if you have this queued up, listen to this here.
December 7th, 2020, I am in bed. Most nights I couldn't get to sleep without being completely hammered. I would wake up about 4 o'clock in the morning, gripping a pillow, wondering, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to get through this? How am I going to pay that bill? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Knowing that I want Jesus in my life, but I hadn't truly accepted him inside of my heart. And so I prayed to him that night, and I said, Jesus, I've always loved you. I don't know if I've ever treated you as good as you've treated me, as I can look back on that in hindsight today. I said, but show me a sign, or take me home. Get me out.
So powerful. And again, there's about 23 minutes. That's not out there anywhere, right? You shared that with me. Thank you, by the way, because when you shared it with me, you said, Monica, I don't even remember what I said. Was it, you talked earlier about an out-of-body experience, that as well?
Oh, without question. They asked me, the FCA asked me if I would do it, and I was like, of course. And so I'm like trying to write it, and I don't write, like I bullet point and I just go like, this just happens. And so I just kind of got up there and I just started talking, and I had all my lines that I needed. And I got, if you watch the very end of the video, you can almost see it I almost go like this, and I look around. I'm like,
what just happened?
What's going on here? And
Who
I
are
was
we
like,
listening
I gotta
to?
go. I gotta go. What did I say? What did I say? I don't remember anything.
It was beautiful. You tell the story and you talk about, so everybody remembers 2020. We know what happened, but it's very, very different here. You talk a little bit in that about how 2020 happened, and with many people from a financial standpoint, things start crumbling. It gets to be very scary and very dark. Many people turn to alcohol, drugs, sex, gaming addictions, all these things that didn't serve them, didn't nourish their heart and soul. And then you ask a friend of yours who was in these Bible study classes if you could join. And it's always, in your head you can go, well, we're really good friends. I wonder why you've never invited me. Did you think that?
No, in fact, I talk about it with his name's Aaron Lang. He's my banker, and I was just it was a tough time, and I had already gone through my moment where I didn't want to live anymore. It was 2:00 in the morning. I don't know how much I'd had to drink that night. Couldn't get to sleep, and I'm just laying there gripping the pillow, just saying, like, I've always had this amazing affirmation for you, Jesus. Just please show me a sign, or like, let's go. I'm tapping out here. I can't do this anymore. The stress of finances, my children, everything, just not being able to work, not being able to leave the house. And so the next morning, another friend of mine that was working at my hair salon that I had at the time, Lisa, she sent me the testimonial from Jesus Calling. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's just like, okay, I asked, you showed. And so it's a little different. Mine is a little different because everybody has their own hell too, right? Like, so mine was where it was at. And at that moment, I knew that there was a hand down there again. And as I look back on my life, he was always there. And it's the craziest thing ever in my mind to comprehend. And so for me to be able to have that and then just to naturally, Joy FM, that January of 2021, I put it on, and I don't listen to anything else. That music is what soothes my soul. From the time I was 16 to the time I was 31, I was not only encouraged to hurt people on the ice and beat people up, and that's how I handled things. And even though I'm smart enough to understand what's right and wrong, and I've never been in a street fight or a bar fight or anything like that, there's still an area that has to go. Mm-hmm. And so I had to learn where to put that. And so I today set it at the foot of the cross. And I allow that music to just infiltrate my soul, mm-hmm. and it just keeps me grounded, and it keeps me happy. And my kids get a little irritated because I won't let them. I typically like, no, my house, my rules, But I'm trying to loosen up a little bit. We play a lot of country, Morgan Wallen and Luke Combs and stuff now too, and trying to open it up a little bit. But it was almost a safety blanket for me, because whenever I could feel that storm brewing up inside of me, I would just go straight there. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I was going through a tough time with my beverage company last year, and beautiful days, golfing, wonderful people, wonderful food. And so I've just tried to get in the habit of finding my time during the day where I go say thank you, mm-hmm. and have gratitude.
We have to have gratitude, and we have to, as you mentioned, go through, I say this, when I'm no longer on this earth, I want to be remembered for this phrase. The greatest success and the most powerful feeling inside your soul comes from the darkest places, and that's where you find your strength. Anybody that you have found that you follow, that has an incredible success, you will find where they came from, and it empowers you. Instead of being handed something and gifted something, it is, look what I have come through, look what I've been through. That's the powerful aspect. So Reed's talking about how he found faith. I've mentioned many times on this show that over the years, if I talk to children and I hear them say, oh yeah, I was forced to go to church, I was forced to say this or to do that, and they rebel and they turn away from it. And then when you find it on your own, it's the most beautiful path to be on, the clarity of mind and knowing that you sought it out and that you accepted it, and you were ready for that message. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about a really powerful thing that you mention in that testimonial, and it has to do with, as kids will do, watch what you do and follow what you do until you have that eye-opening moment of maybe it's not the best example that you're setting for them. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Again, this beautiful faith journey that Reed has been on. More after the break.
It's It's the icing on the cake.
The final brush stroke.
The finishing touches make all the difference in your home, too.
Have fun and get started at carolhouse.com/room planner.
With thousands of accessories in our 3.5-acre showrooms.
Get your picture perfect room and the lowest prices in the country at Carol House.
Because you like nice things.
You know, of course, it's great to get outside and enjoy the warm weather, but when it's time to relax indoors, be sure your home stays cool with equipment and service from my friends at Aldon. 24-hour emergency service available. At Aldon, it's their commitment to continue providing above and beyond HVAC service for all of their customers. They truly care about the air you breathe. Call them today at 314-567-5585 or on the web, aldon.com. That's al-don.com, 314-567-5585. Welcome back, 740. It's the Real Monica Adams Show, and we are being real, very raw, very authentic. That is exactly what I want more of on this show, from me to you, from my guest. There's nothing about this show that is fake. It's all integrity, authenticity. The people who are sponsoring our show align with our mission, and I just want to thank you. You obviously are the same way. One of the things, though, people are telling me that they're sharing this show and these messages with all their family and friends that are very upbeat and positive, and I said, that's great, but there are people who are very, very dark. There are people who are very depressed, mental health, PTSD that we've talked about on the show. They need to hear this as well, because they need more of this to help nourish their soul, that they've come from darkness and that they see possibility, that they see a way out. I told you I would look at some of your comments. If you missed it, Carrie said that she enjoyed what Reed said earlier. Reed Lowe from the St. Louis Blues, enforcer, motivational speaker, auctioneer, just a great, great human being, and has been one of my friends for a long time. Earlier, he said, do you know what ego means? Edge God out. I love that. So you all can start using that. God's morning, some people say, mess into a message and test into a testimony. Love your testimony, Carrie says. God is good all the time. Amazing story. Amen. There's a lot of great comments. I'll have Reed go back and maybe comment to some of you when he sees this. One of the things, Reed, that you talk about that really moved me, brought tears to my eyes, and I thought about this because I think there's a lot of you that are going to see yourself in this. Do not shame yourself. We're actually going to pick the 100 Days of Freedom from Shame today on purpose because of this very moment you're going to hear about. You realize that, ooh, I got chills, that you were verbally abusive to your children. You then hear upstairs Connor, your oldest, talking the same way, kind of another out-of-body experience of you not realizing you're in the moment, you're speaking this way, probably the same way to your ex-wife, that the two of you did it to each other, and it's just what became, that you're immune to this because you don't even realize that it is part of your life, and then you hear a very powerful moment, and that is your oldest son to your youngest speaking the exact same way, and instead of going up and saying, and shaking him, and saying, rah, 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 right, you went and put your arm around him and said what?
Well, I told him that we weren't going to do this anymore, and that I had taught him how to do this, and that I was committed to spending the rest of my life showing him how not to do this. And I think it goes back to that moment that I was just discussing earlier about how to release our angers and the frustrations that were coming. I was living at 8. And when I say 8, I mean my temperament level was at 8. So I would go and have my day of misery, and then I would come home at night, and the smallest thing would set me off. My daughter didn't even want to come. I think it was 8 months. She didn't even come over to my house because she just didn't want to see me acting the way that I was. Connor took probably the biggest brunt of it all. And yeah, it was the Sunday before Thanksgiving of 2020. And December 7th, 2020 was the night that I prayed to Jesus and gave him my heart. And so leading up to that moment, and then actually sitting and living through the click. And prior to June was when I started, me and Jesus weren't completely linked yet. But I knew I wanted to be more like him and less like me. And so that was where my journey was. I need balance in my life because I'm completely out of balance, and I need to be a little bit more like Jesus and a little less like me. And I just remember that day And I went upstairs and I just hugged him and I said, son, like, we're not going to do this anymore, and it's okay. This is my fault. It's not your fault. I will work my butt off for the rest of my life to show you kids how we're supposed to treat each other and how a dad's supposed to treat their children. And so as I've gone through, it's been like 2.5, 3 years now. And so I look at being a parent as being a shepherd, and a shepherd has a hook on the end of their shaft, and they don't hit their sheep with it when they wander off. They grab them and they smile and they tell them they love them. They go, come on back now, come on back now. And so that's how I try and be with everybody, whether I'm mentoring somebody or and that person might be mentoring me back, always leading with love and trying to accept it. And I'll never forget, like, Ollie's very excited. He likes the music that I listen to and stuff like that. And so I'm sitting at the kitchen table with Ava on one side and Ollie on the other. And Ava looks at me and she's like, Daddy, I love Jesus too.
Aww.
I'm like, oh, I said, oh yeah, that's so awesome.
My goodness.
And she goes, well, she's like, I don't understand. She's like, but I do love Jesus for sure for one reason. And I go, what's that? She's like, because what he's done to you.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, when you have your daughter that wouldn't even come over to your house, and now she's got her friends over and your house is the place to be, and you feel like you're losing everything, and then you just set it all. You know, Zach Williams also says in that song, Come to the Table, like, bring all your imagine there's a table as far as the eye can see, and every single person has a name on one of those chairs, and all you have to do is bring your junk and your problems and everything that you can't stand about yourself and lay it on that table, and you're good, and it doesn't matter. And when I set my stuff there, my life is just better. And I wish that, I don't wish that everybody could go through what I went through, but I wish that everybody could have a feeling and understand what it's like to feel like you're drowning, and then all of a sudden you get brought up out of the water and you're just like, whoa, what just happened here?
Born again.
Yeah.
You know a good friend of mine, Brock Wilson.
Yep.
If you follow Brock on Instagram or YouTube, and I encourage you to do so, because here's another tough guy whose father played for the St. Louis Blues. He lost his dad. That ripped him apart, went through addiction, and almost took his life multiple times. Thank God he's still here, because what he's giving back to now. But both of you, incredible athletes, tough guys, taught to be strong. You mentioned something about, hey, if you have a concussion, you keep playing. If you don't, you're looked at as weak. If you get out, you lose the fight. Hey, what did you do wrong? It's all this pressure against men that the world has done to them, that it's constantly, am I going to be judged, or should I bring this all to the table? Yes, but you're bearing so much, and it's a scary place. Can you just look in this camera right now and talk to the men that are listening that are saying, but Reed, I'm so afraid to show the vulnerability?
Well, I always say that vulnerability is a superpower, not a weakness. And when I started to show my vulnerabilities to the world started to look at me in a different way. And there's a thing out there that I think a lot of people get confused with, and that's sin. And sin is not, to me, what it would be to, like, the lay person that just goes to church and, like, oh, you said the F word, so you sinned. You know what I mean? Right. Sin is a nature. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we want to take other people's sins and we want to place it upon ourselves, because that gives us a human emotion to feel. And a lot of times when we take somebody else's sin and we place it upon ourselves, there's a part to us that gets to have that soaking feeling of whether it's the negative or whatever, you're trying to help them or whatever. And one of the things that I've really tried to do is not accept everybody else's sin and forgive me for mine. The day that I learned how to forgive myself is the day it was the first day to the rest of my life. And I tell this to people too. There's a lot of people that, go to church and have Jesus there because they're trying to get someplace. I didn't give my heart to Jesus Christ so that I could get to heaven. Mm-hmm. I did it so that I could be better here today and make a difference in the world that needs to be made a difference in, because I'm not really sure what goes on behind those closed doors, and everybody around here and all the different religion schools or Catholic this, that, the next thing, you guys can all talk about whatever you want, but you truly don't know. And that's the one real special thing about being a human, is we have the ultimate choice. but we know inside there is good in this world and there's evil in this world. And unfortunately, they both reside in humans.
Yes.
And we get to choose every single day which side of the fence that we want to hop on. And I know what side I'm on. I know that I still butcher it every single day, but I know that I can forgive myself, and I know that my mindset is to be the best that I can be. I'm never going to be as good as Jesus, but if I can just be a little more like him and a little less like me every day, healing, loving. If you're mean to him, he's just going to love you back, right? Like the true epitome of what a human being should be. And that's really my only goal, is to try and do that as good as I can.
Absolutely. And what I want you to all understand is in this message that there's possibility within each and every one of you. Whatever you've done in the past, at any given moment, just like Reed said, you can decide to accept him. And it doesn't matter the religion, it doesn't matter your spirituality. I've asked questions in my life coaching class on Thursday night, Reed. I always say, can spirituality and religion exist together? And they're like, ooh, that's a really powerful question. And I said, well, what do you even think religion is? Is it organized religion? I grew up in a Catholic family. My mom is a devout Catholic. I love her. She is my dearest friend. And I think for the longest time, and this is what people see, they get their feelings hurt. Unfortunately, they get their feelings hurt if you are not following the exact way that they brought you up, right? So I had to find it myself. I think it is the most powerful thing when you are called to, you're called by Jesus, first of all. That Jesus Calling book is powerful. Both you and a friend of mine that I lost, both of you had that book, and I was like, oh, this is a powerful book I haven't read yet. You had it for a while before you read it anyway, so it's always when it's our time. But what I found was I would talk with my mom over the years, and I would say, Mom, it's one thing to go to church, but if you're not paying attention, you're looking around, and when I was younger, I would be like, oh, there's my friend over there, there's my best friend, look at that cute outfit she's wearing, and we'd be like this, and you didn't have text, but now people are on their phones, and they're texting within church and not paying attention. They do that just to feel better about themselves for that very hour, and then I would watch people, and I think this is what disconnected with me, I would watch people walk out of the service, smack their kids across the face, I would hear them screaming at them, and I would go, what just happened? How did this, I don't understand this disconnect. All I kept feeling was, I'm being called to return to church, but what does that church look like? Or where is it? I used to say, you don't have to go to a building to profess your faith. You just have to live it. And so I finally think I talked to my mom and I said, I might find my way back to the Catholic Church. I don't know. All I know is when that person's up there delivering the sermon or the message, please be passionate about it. Don't just take and start reading and fumbling through things. And how is that? You know me and you. Very, very big into passion. So deliver that message with passion, and I will hang on every word, as will every child and every senior. That's how you connect with someone. And that's what we're doing here, right? It's the mission statement of possibilities, of changing lives, of taking you out of the darkness that you might be in right now. I know there's a lot of people that said, I need this today, Monica. I needed this story. It's just one day at a time. It's not everything that has happened in the past. As you said, you have to lay it all out there, but to be real and be okay to be judged.
So I'm going to tell you a little story. The first Christian song that I ever started to listen to was Evolution Worship and Brandon Lake. Brandon Lake's fantastic. If you want to watch a guy absolutely rock out and then also melt your heart with gratitude, he's unbelievable. But Elevation Worship wrote this song, and Brandon Lake sings it with him. And go to YouTube. It's they're rocking choir in the back, and the first part of the song, it says, "I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me." And it's just like, as soon as I heard those lyrics, I just stopped in my track and I was like, I've been in the NHL, I've had money, I've had fame, I've had, and I've had nothing, right? There's only one thing in this world that's ever filled me up like I'm full today on. And it's really simple. It's not tricky. It's not, you don't have to do a certain thing, right? I watched this one preacher talking on TikTok or one of the social media, and he had this kid come up to me and says, if I give my heart to Jesus, do I have to quit smoking weed? And the minister's like, well, no. He's like, you mean I can still smoke weed and have Jesus in my life? He's like, yeah. He's like, do you go get clean before you have a shower? He said the whole thing is listen, whatever you have, bring it to him. He wants you to bring everything to him. And then you guys are going to work it out.
Right.
And trust me, folks, it's not like you go, I want Jesus in my heart, and then all of a sudden you're, walking on plates of gold. That's not how it is. It's a grind every single day. What it is just a relationship with something that's greater than human. And I think that's what's important.
George, can you do me a favor? And I want to, I don't know if you can go straight to it. If not, let's just look at some of the pictures that we had loaded up. But I love this picture of what you decided to do with the tattoo. When I say that he has found God, I mean, he is very, very proud to show this. So there's some pictures that we've been showing of your playing days, of your auctioneering days. We showed the testimonial. But do we have the picture of Reed and his tattoo? Or you can just... I love that too. Isn't that true? Boss, leader. It's so very true. Look at that for a moment, everybody. The boss shouting at everybody, the leader. There it is. That is just amazing.
So the black and white there, that's actually the picture. And then that's my skin on the other side. The tattoo artist folded the piece of paper in half to first off, it's an unbelievable piece of ink. And
what power? When did you do that?
March 11th, 2022.
You have had quite a ride, and I just am excited to see where life is going to take you. Again, for all of you, this show is about finding possibilities for you and never forcing anything on you. I hope you feel that in myself, in Reed. It'll come when it's supposed to come. You will find that faith. You will lean in. Maybe you have a little bit of it. I know you also say in this testimonial that at the time, I don't know, when was that speech, by the way?
April 29th of this last year.
Oh, this last year. So you had said that you don't go to church, but maybe you're like, I thought it was the cutest thing. You're like, maybe I'll do something like that. Maybe I'll do something like that.
For me, it's just I have my Bible study every Thursday morning, and there's 10 of us, and we break the word down, and we talk about it, and we talk about the world and everything that we're going through, and that's enough for me. Yes. And my sister wants me to go to Oak Bridge with her because we live out there, and they apparently have a really awesome band. So my mom's been asking me to go. So
where's that? That's out in Jefferson County?
It's in Arnold. Yeah, it's called Oak Bridge. It's supposed to be really awesome.
Here's what I want you to do. I want you to invite me and Reed to your church. I have been doing kind of field trips of churches because I'll do
that for sure with you.
Okay, let's do it. So we're going to go around, and maybe we'll do this on social media. We'll show you where we are and the message that we've received. I've been to the Crossing 3 times. The one in Fenton twice, the one in Chesterfield once. It's actually where I got these books I'm going to read from in just a second. I also went over to, I think it's Faith Church STL off of Larkin Williams. I've had someone say, hey, come to Alive, come to the actual Faith that's right there in Gravois. I'll go to all of them because that's the thing. I think the more open-minded we are, the more we connect 100%. As human beings.
I think I would enjoy going to a different church every Sunday than going to the same one every Sunday if I was going to do it.
I want this as part of my Sunday. When I said that I had been, so I've been obviously led by him since I had my blood clot at 19, and he saved me. I feel that he saved me to be his disciple here on earth, to change the world. I stepped away from television to change on a grander scale because this is what you need in your life, not the negativity of the news. That's why it happened. And now I'm feeling more and more and more. So that's why I'm being drawn to, where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do? You just guide me and I'm there. So Sundays, I want it to be all about going to churches and going to brunch afterwards and just talking about it afterwards and just filling our souls.
There's one thing that I love about my Jesus and the Holy Spirit and God and just the representation of surrender, right? Like when you surrender, it's one of the craziest, coolest feelings I've ever given in my life to myself. It's the biggest gift ever. And people talk a lot about kings and religion and everything else, but what a wonderful God that we get to serve because he doesn't force us to come into his kingdom. And when we do come, he gives us everything that we need, right? Like, how does it get any better than that?
No.
Like, it's a choice, and it's a beautiful one at that.
It is. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
I normally wrap up the show solo, but I'm going to have Reed stay in here because I want him to hear this after everything he's been through. If there's ever even a doubt of, is there shame on this, shame on that, shame on anything that he's told you in this hour? No. We are doing 100 days to freedom from many things, and today it's about shame. We'll have that as we wrap up the show coming up right after the break. Envita Health and Wellness, where you can feel your best both inside and out. Envita isn't your typical med spa. They're a multi-specialty medical spa and wellness center serving St. Louis and its surrounding areas. They have ketamine for mental health and pain, IV therapy, medical weight loss, and aesthetics treatments. As board-certified anesthesia providers, Envita can ensure that their advanced treatments are provided safely with minimal to no pain. So let Envita take care of you. Call 314-394-0950 to book an appointment or online, EnvitaHealthandWellness.com.
Just hanging out here.
It is 7:58, and we're going to wrap up the show. Actually, I might have Reed read this if we have. If we're,
my name's Reed. I don't
okay, here
do
we
it
go.
well.
Here we go. We're going to read this, and I want you. I want you all to receive this message because I think it's very powerful for what we've been talking about today. The power of improvement. Anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. That's 2 Corinthians 5, verse 17. Our verse for today is a very powerful one, but one that is often misunderstood by those who are struggling to overcome a specific sin. Reed talked about sin earlier. It's referring to the cleansing that we get when we accept Christ. God forgives our sins completely. Though they are as scarlet, he makes them as white as snow. That's from Isaiah. In my mind, this is one of the top 10 most encouraging verses in the Bible, Isaiah 1, verse 18. But it suddenly becomes a discouraging verse if you misunderstand it. So understand this. Some people look at this verse and think that it means that when a person accepts Christ, they are instantly set free from every weakness, that old temptations will no longer have their power, making life suddenly a piece of cake. Then, when that doesn't happen, they feel disillusioned and wonder, what did you do wrong? Quote, I'm not a new person, they think. I'm the same old miserable failure I was before. So easy to shame yourself. If this is where you are right now, I have great news for you. The Christian life is not and has never been about sudden, overnight change where a person goes from deeply troubled to practically perfect in one day. The Christian life is about daily improvement. Growth is a word the Bible uses to describe it. And make no mistake, there is tremendous power in incremental improvement. For example, a baseball player, or we'll use a hockey player, but let's say this, a baseball player who gets 5 hits every 20 at-bats is a .250 hitter and considered mediocre. But a player who gets 6 hits every 20 at-bats is a 300 and a star. That's just one more hit, just one more. The same holds true in life. Small improvements make a huge difference. So please today, don't worry about being perfect. Just do a little better today than you did yesterday. And Benjamin Franklin said this, when you're finished changing, you're finished. Today's prayer. Father, thank you for making my sins as white as snow. Please help me now as I begin to make changes to my habits and to my routines. Absolutely perfect. It's as if God chose it, and he did. It's just eerie how it happens sometimes, Reed. I never know what I'm getting ready to turn to, but oh my gosh, I just got chills. I love you, my friend.
I love you too. Thank you
so much. Thank you. And to all of you, we'll go back and look at some of these comments because there were so many that came in. All I know is the one main thing that I heard from all of you in these messages were, what a powerful show today. And I told you it would be. We've got some great ones coming up as well. I'm going to be doing a great interview with Katie Collier today. Katie with Katie's Pizza and Pasta. That will be a recorded show we'll be showing you in the very near future. And she's going to bear as well her 14-year sobriety journey and look at the empire that she's built. So when I tell you about possibilities, they exist there for you. We have some incredible shows coming up for you in the coming weeks as well. And let me know what you'd love to see on this show as well. Remember, as I told you, you can go out and be anything you want to in this world. But first and foremost, spread kindness. Love you all. Have a good day.